All right, the first item is going to be a moment of silent reflection for our first responders and members of the armed forces. That's going to be followed by an invocation by Pastor Roger Ball of the Freedom Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Bob Solari. If everybody would please rise and join me in a moment of silent reflection.
Father, thank you for the moment of silence and reflection by which we can pray in the way that each one of us prays. Now, Lord, I offer a prayer in the way that I pray, and I thank you for this new day. Lord, 2020 is definitely significant. It was 400 years ago that a group of people decided to leave their country in search of religious freedom and make a perilous journey to a new land. And on that journey, they chose to write a compact, a mission statement. And they made their mission the proclamation of the gospel in the new land. And thank you that that continues to this day among churches, leaders, and Christians. So we thank you for that. Today, Lord, I pray for our community. I pray for Indian River County, Lord, for the areas where there may be injustice, Lord, that justice would come. For the areas where there is evil, that righteousness would come. Lord, I thank you for these men and women who lead our county, beginning with the commissioners today. And God, I ask that you would give them a heart to lead our community with righteousness and justice. I pray for our first responders today. I pray protection over them, Lord. I thank you for their service. And I pray that, God, that they would fulfill their mission to protect and to serve the rest of us. God, I pray for the election today. I pray that any scheme or any deception that is attempted would be exposed and fall, that we might have an election with integrity. And that, God, that no matter who fulfills the office and is elected, that we would pray for them. God, I pray that you would just continue to lead this county in the way that you would desire, and that your blessing would be upon this meeting today, that there would be wisdom, Lord, from on high that would just come to the minds of those who have to make decisions on our behalf. And then we'll give you all of the glory and all of the honor and all of the praise. For it's in Jesus' name that I pray. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Next item is additions and deletions to the agenda. Gentlemen, any additions or deletions?
Chair, move approval.
I have a motion by Commissioner Fleischer with a second by Commissioner O'Brien. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And with that, we'll move on to proclamations and presentations. Our first is going to be a presentation of proclamation recognizing the month of November 2020 as National Adoption Awareness Month. And this will be presented by Commissioner Zork to Ms. Karen Toole. If you'd like to come up to the podium, Commissioner Zork.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll read the proclamation, and then Karen, if you have a few words you'd like to share, that would be great. Proclamation recognizing the month of November 2020 as National Adoption Awareness Month. Whereas Indian River County recognizes the communal importance of providing children in foster care with safe, permanent homes where they can grow and thrive. And whereas every child deserves the chance to grow up in a loving, stable family. And whereas there are currently 50 children awaiting adoption across the Treasure Coast, including 6 in Indian River County. Whereas children waiting for adoptive parents and the families who have already adopted or are considering adopting these children require and deserve community and agency support. And whereas Communities Connect for Kids and its network of family support service providers, including Place of Hope, Mount Bethel Human Services, 4 Kids Treasure Coast, and Camelot Community Care, work diligently with the Florida Department of Children and Families to transform the lives of hurting children and their families. And whereas this effort, along with celebrations in all 50 states around the country, seek to inspire dedicated individuals and families to make a profound difference in the life of a child through adoption. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that the month of November 2020 be recognized as National Adoption Awareness Month, and that the board encourages community and religious organizations, businesses, and others to help celebrate adoption, honor families that grow through adoption, and focus attention on those children who live in the shadows of an uncertain future while they await for a forever family. Adopted this third day of November 2020, signed by all 5 county commissioners. Good morning.
Morning. Thank you all for having me today. I appreciate it on this busy day. As we celebrate National Adoption Month and call attention to adoption as a choice is just a wonderful way to celebrate, I think, an election day and hopefully a peaceful day across our country. And when you work in child welfare, adoptions rank up there with the gas tank fillers of our job. We have a lot of hard days, but adoptions are usually a really awesome thing, and it just keeps you going. And you get to see children move through the process, and it's very cathartic because it could take years to get there. And then it's just a beautiful day. And so we thank you for bringing attention to that today and for your support always in everything.
Great, and thank you for you and your organization, all the great work that you do. And we have this proclamation for you, and you can share it with the others. Thank you.
Thanks.
And would you like a photo? Thank you very much.
For framing and available on our website.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right.
Gift shop.
The next item, the next item is consent agenda. Would anybody like to pull anything from the consent agenda?
No, I need to go over that extensive list of consent agenda items. See if there's anything worthy of pulling.
I-
Move approval of consent.
Second.
All right. Does anybody from the public need to pull anything from this consent agenda? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And with that, we'll move on to our next item, which is a public hearing. The next item on the agenda is a request by MJS Vero Land LLC to rezone plus minus 19.32 acres from RM6 multifamily residential district up to 6 units per acre to RM8 multifamily residential district up to 8 units per acre for property located north of 16th Street, approximately 870 feet west of 66th Avenue. This is a quasi-judicial proceeding. The parties to the proceeding are Indian River County and MJS Vero Land LLC, the applicant. At this time, I'm going to go through our checklist. Commissioners, would you please disclose, or have you had any ex parte communications, site visits, or independent investigations? And we'll start with Commissioner Zork.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. No conversations with the applicant, MJS Vero Land. I do live just west of this site, so I saw the signs when they went up initially, but we'll keep a fair and open mind.
Fantastic.
Madam Chair, no, none that I'm aware of.
I myself have none that I'm aware of. Commissioner O'Brien?
None.
Commissioner
That I'm aware of, Madam Chair.
All right, and can you guys confirm that you have an open mind and are able to base your decisions on the evidence presented in applicable law? Commissioner Zork?
Can and will.
I can and will.
Can and will.
Can and will. Can and will.
Fantastic. At this time, we will open the public hearing and ask the clerk to swear in all witnesses collectively. So anybody that is going to be speaking on this item, either from staff, the applicant, or the public, please rise and raise your right hand.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
All right. At this time, we will have the presentation by county staff. Welcome.
And let me introduce Matt Calap, making his debut for the Board of County Commissioners from our long-range planning section. Matt?
Thank you, Phil. Good morning. My name's Matt Callup. I'm a planner with Long Range Planning. And as stated, county staff received a rezoning application from MJS Vero Land LLC requesting to rezone approximately 19.32 acres from RM6 to RM8. The subject site proposed to be rezoned is located north of 16th Street and approximately 870 feet west of 66th Avenue. The purpose of this request is to secure the zoning necessary to develop the site at a density consistent with the density allowed by the subject site's future land use designation, which is M1, medium density residential 1, up to 8 units per acre. The subject site is, the Planning and Zoning Commission of Indian River County held a public hearing on September 24th, 2020. At that hearing, they voted unanimously, 5-0, to recommend that the Indian River County Board of County Commissioners approve this rezoning request. The subject site is currently zoned RM6, residential multifamily, up to 6 units per acre. This zoning district allows for multifamily dwellings such as townhomes and apartments, and various conditional uses such as child care facilities, adult care facilities, foster care facilities, and emergency services. The proposed zoning district for the subject site, RM8, residential multifamily up to 8 units per acre, is similar to the RM6 zoning district in that they both allow for multifamily dwellings such as townhomes and apartments. However, the proposed zoning district allows those dwellings to be constructed at a slightly higher density of an additional 2 units per acre, and the RM8 district also reduces the level of review required for certain uses from special exception to administrative. Those uses include community centers, bed and breakfasts, and level 2 and 3 group homes. And as you can see there, an administrative permit uses require Planning and Zoning Commission, whereas special exception permit uses require a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning and an approval from the Board of County Commissioners. As shown on the county's future land use map here, the subject site is designated M1 multiple family residential 1 up to 8 units per acre. The adjacent properties to the north, east, and west all have the same future land use designation as the subject site. Additionally, the properties beyond the adjacent ones to the north, east, and west also have an M1 future land use designation. Across the street to the south are properties located within an Ag 1, Agricultural 1 future land use designation. These properties to the south are separated from the subject site by an approximately 135-foot right-of-way, which is 16th Street. And additionally, the properties to the southwest of the subject site, while designated Ag 1, contain the Point West planned development, which is residential. As previously mentioned, the M1 land use designation allows for multifamily uses up to 8 units per acre, which is less than the density allowed in M2 designated areas. The M2 future land use designation and the M1 future land use designation are located in areas of the county that have the services and infrastructure required for medium residential densities. The medium density areas are located along major transportation routes, near shopping, employment, and service centers. Furthermore, these areas with the M1 future land use designation are intended for multifamily developments. This map here depicts the zoning districts of the subject property and adjacent properties. To the north is a parcel zoned A1, which contains the Central Assembly of God religious institution. To the southwest is the Point West Planned Development, which is within a Planned Development Traditional Neighborhood Design zoning district and is developed with single-family homes and duplexes. To the southeast of the subject site are vacant parcels zoned A1. Directly to the east of the subject site is a parcel zoned A1 that contains pasture land and cattle. However, this parcel directly to the east is currently adjacent to existing multifamily zones on both the east and west, and is within the medium-density residential 1 future land use designation, which makes this use and zoning a non-conforming one. To the west of the subject site is Lexington Club, which is zoned RM8. However, while zoned RM8, the actual development density is about 9.5 units per acre due to the project receiving an affordable housing density bonus. Further west, beyond Lexington Club, is the Isles of Vero Beach, another multifamily development. This map depicts the proposed zoning district for the 19.32 acre subject site and the adjacent existing zoning districts. So if I flip back here, it's going from RM6 to RM8. Staff analyzed the following criteria required by the County Code of Ordinances whenever rezoning is proposed: concurrency, consistency with the comprehensive plan, consistency with the county LDRs, environmental impacts, and compatibility with surrounding uses. For concurrency, staff checked to confirm there is sufficient capacity with regards to transportation, water, wastewater, solid waste, and stormwater management. Staff has determined that sufficient capacity currently exists to accommodate this request. Additionally, a detailed concurrency review will be conducted at the time of development. For consistency with the comprehensive plan, staff checked to confirm that the goals, objectives, and policies of the comp plan are being met. Staff found that for the transportation element policy 1, this request promotes infill development and encourages higher intensity uses near major corridors, so it's consistent with transportation element policy 8.1. The request provides adequate sites to accommodate the current and anticipated housing demand for all income groups and groups with special housing needs, so it's consistent with objective 2 of the housing element. This request supports housing development near major employment centers, so it's consistent with housing element policy 1.9. This request promotes a compact and energy-efficient land use pattern, so it's consistent with future land use objective 1. It's within, the subject site is within the urban service area, and it's consistent with an M1 future land use designation, so it's consistent with future land use policies 1.13 and 1.14. This request is adjacent to multifamily. It's along a collector road, and it does not abut single-family areas, so it's consistent with future land use policy 1.43. The subject site is also located within the urban service area, as previously mentioned, and which contains the necessary infrastructure and services, so it furthers future land use objective 2, and the request encourages and directs growth into the urban service area, so it's consistent with future land use policy 2.2. For consistency with the county's land development regulations, staff also checked the applicable sections of the code, including standards of review. After a review, staff can confirm that this request is consistent with the land development regulations and it does meet the standards of review. For environmental impact, county staff determined that there are no adverse environmental impacts as a result of this rezoning request, and the potential impacts to the environment are the same under both the current and proposed zoning. For compatibility with existing uses, staff analyzed the existing uses on adjacent properties, and to the north there are no incompatibilities, and to the west there are no incompatibilities. The land to the south, which is separated by 16th Street and the sublateral A1-W canal, currently contains vacant land, and the Point West Plan development, which is separated by 135-foot right-of-way, 130-foot wide right-of-way, 16th Street. There are no incompatibilities with the property to the east because it contains a non-conforming use, and it's owned by Laurel Homes. In conclusion, this request is compatible with the existing uses and potential future uses. It's consistent with the comprehensive plan and land development regulations. This request passes the concurrency test, meets the criteria to be rezoned, and there are no additional adverse impacts to the environment. Therefore, staff can support this request. And with that, staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend that the BCC approve this rezoning request from RM6 to RM8 by adopting the proposed rezoning ordinance.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was a very thorough and well-organized presentation. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
At this time, commissioners, are there any
Yeah.
questions?
Matt, can you go back to I think one of your earlier slides, the aerial photograph?
Yes.
I'm just trying to make sure I get squared away here.
Okay. Oops, is this thing working? You'd like to see the aerial, Commissioner?
Please.
This one?
Yeah. Okay, so the parcel immediately to the west of the subject property, looks like there's a long, narrow pond in it there, right there. Okay. Who owns that? Because Lexington Club is the development to the further west of that with there, right there.
Lexington Club owns that, the separate parcel with just the retention pond and the other larger parcel. It's
Okay, so they own all of that then?
correct.
Okay. So is the vacant parcel that they own then, do they have any more development they can put on that? Or is that tied up with open space and the retention pond?
Right, they're limited by the maximum units per acre, and right now they're at the 9.5 units per acre. They received a density bonus, and the remainder of the property is used for open space.
Okay, so then,
Requirements.
if we approve the rezoning, that parcel then would still kind of be as it is and kind of serve as a buffer a little bit then, I guess, right?
I think that is the case. It's foreseeable that it will remain open space.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Other
Madam
questions?
Chair?
Yes.
I want to update, when we did our disclosures in the beginning, one, I did have a call from a nearby property owner when the signs went up, and they asked me what was going on, and at that time, I did not know. I referred them to county planning. I don't know who MJS Vero Land is, but I'll change mine, that, not that I'm aware of that I know any of them, but I don't know who MJS is.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll,
Do you want to know?
updated.
This is the same developer that built the reserve at Vero.
Oh,
Okay.
I thought,
So it's market rate, pretty high-end, nice quality product.
okay. Then actually I do, but I've never spoken to, because that's the Cohen group.
Yeah, Steve Cohen.
Okay,
Okay. We'll consider that your questions have been updated.
great, thank you.
Commissioners, other questions of staff at this time? No? Seeing none, then we will move on to the presentation by the applicant. Would the applicant like to do any type of presentation? Welcome.
Good morning, thank you. My name is Jim Vitter with BGE, address 1515 Indian River Boulevard, Suite 8245, Vero Beach 32960. We don't have a formal presentation, we're just here to answer any questions or comments that come up from the board.
Okay, wonderful. Commissioners, do you have any questions of the applicant?
No, ma'am.
No? All right, at this time, we will move on to any input from the public. If there's anybody from the public that wishes to speak on this item, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record. All right, seeing none. Is there any final presentations by county staff?
Yeah, I just want to say, I want to thank Bill and Matt for a great first presentation and the limelight, first time on TV, I think. And they did their usual thorough job, and I think they met all the checklist boxes and everything. But there's some elements to this project that I think fit into a larger strategy for the county, which I really like. One, if we're ever going to fulfill our potential for bikeable and walkable origin to destination travel, as we hear a lot of advocacy for around, I know bicycling is becoming more popular, having a bit of density in close proximity to your major attractors, just like this is really a good thing. Jim Mann and I from the MPO went out and put pedestrian counters up in the College Lane area, all around there. And it was like Times Square. I mean, we had to stop a few times for the people, the kids walking by from the State College, the high school, the apartments that got put up at the Reserve, and all the attractors around there. So it's kind of a nice thing that's emerging in that respect. Of course, none of the kids were using the sidewalks, but they were running whatever the closest path was. Now that it's muddy, they'll probably use them. Yeah, the impacts are minimal otherwise. We don't take that into account normally when we do a traffic analysis. I mean, we do the normal IT trip generation rates, but that's something that could actually make the project mitigate a little better. And another thing I'll point out, just AHAC. One of AHAC's recommendations is, Commissioner Solari will remember, let's see some of our RM6 and RM8 built to RM, because you do have the option to downzone it and build to a lower density. And when you have more product on the market, supply and demand, that might make rents more affordable just because there's more apartments out there. So that's my final comment on this.
Thank you, Phil. Comments are much appreciated.
I did have a follow-up question for Mr. Vitter, if he wouldn't mind coming back up, please. So in the backup here, the P&Z meeting minutes, you said that the traffic study does not warrant a westbound right or an eastbound left turn lane, but that you are planning to add a westbound right turn lane. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, great, good. Thank you very much.
All right, and Mr. Ritter, while you're there, do you have any final presentation you'd like to make? No? Okay. All right, at this time, have all the documents and tangible evidence, if any, been admitted into evidence and given to the clerk? I'm assuming so.
I haven't seen any additional documents submitted today.
Wonderful. At this time, I'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, what is your pleasure?
Madam Chair, motion to approve staff recommendation to approve the rezoning request.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Commissioner O'Brien with a second by Commissioner Flesher. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Great presentation. All right, the next item is a public notice item.
Thank you very much. We have a public notice of a public hearing which is scheduled for November 10th, 2020. This will be to consider an ordinance authorizing an extension of the temporary moratorium for an additional 180 days with regards to Class B biosolids. This will be legislative in nature, and again, this is a public hearing scheduled for November 10th, 2020. With that, I turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you. And with that, we'll move on to utility services. The next item is North Sebastian Water and Sewer Phase 2, approval of St. Johns River Water Management District cost share agreement and next steps. Welcome, Mr. Burke.
Hi, good morning. Vincent Burke, Director of Utility Services. For the record, back in May of this year, the Board of County Commissioners approved the FDEP Water Quality Grant, LPQ 0019, for the amount of $2.5 million. The estimated construction cost for the sewer portion of this is about $4.1. Pursuant to board direction in the past, staff was actually tasked with going after any and all grants available for septic to sewer, and we did just that. We applied for the IRL NEP, in which we were able to receive just over $200,000. In August of this year, the board approved the IRL NEP grant. So today we are presenting the successful award of the St. Johns River Water Management District cost share grant for up to 33% of the construction cost. And that is what is in the agenda packet. We also, during this time, were informed by the FDEP that there was additional dollars available, up to $750,000, and that is Amendment 1 to the existing FDEP grant. So we're asking board permission to sign both of those agreements, the first being the St. Johns River Water Management District grant, the second being Amendment 1 to the FDEP Water Quality Restoration Grant, bringing the sum total of the grants that staff has been able to solicit of $4.8 million. In the agenda packet, we noted any and all project costs associated with this to be about $5.8 million. Again, those are estimates, subject to change, based on some numbers that were presented actually quite a while ago, but staff believes they are consistent, and we look forward direction to see if we can then go out for bid services and then bring something back at a later date. Recall that this is not only a sewer project, but is a water and sewer project, and typically we bill our wastewater when we have water coming in for accuracy purposes. And so if board approves these grants today, we would move forward with the bid process for the entire project, but also to prepare resolutions 1 and 2 to be back to the board for public input, either for or against that project. And so, in summary, staff recommends that the St. John Rivers Water Management District Cost Share Grant Agreement is approved by the board and authorize the chairman to execute the same on their behalf. To do so with Amendment 1 for the Florida Department of Environmental Protection Water Quality Restoration Grant, LPQ 0019, to direct staff to advertise the North Sebastian Water and Sewer Phase 2 project to go out for competitive bids, to prepare the Resolution 1 and 2 once we have those bids in hand, and vet those numbers and bring that back to the board, and also to engage the services of a CCNA engineering firm of Master & Moeller for the construction phase assistance. Master & Moeller, you may recall, is the design engineer of record for this project, to use their services for the CEI portion of the project. I'm available for any questions that the board may have.
All right, thank you. I know you've been working on putting this funding package together for quite some time, so I'm happy to see this moving forward. Commissioners, any questions?
Madam Chair, move approval of everything Vinnie just said.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner O'Brien with a second by Commissioner Solari. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And with that, we'll move on to Commissioners' Matters. Commissioner Zork, your item, discussion on changing IRC policy for Consultants Competitive Negotiation Act projects to include new scoring categories for owner surprises and past litigation.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Finished early.
Part of my presentation is not going to be specific to any particular vendor, as in one of the lawsuit settlements we are precluded from mentioning their names. So just a bit of an overview. Owner surprises can come in many forms and fashions. Owner surprises are things that may be discovered during construction or may not be discovered until after a building project has been completed. Sometimes it can take 2 to 3 years after discovering an owner surprise before, if you can't come to a resolution, to where the owner surprise ends up going into litigation. What might be an owner surprise? Well, it could be pretty much anything that an owner, or in our case, the taxpayer, funded project that was expecting a different outcome or a different life expectancy of the product that they designed or furnished to the county. Another owner surprise could be when a building sustains a premature failure of a building component, as we recently experienced in Building B, where we had the large concrete ceiling collapse. Fortunately, it was on a weekend. I think that was a big surprise to a lot of folks. Fortunately, it was on a Saturday and not on a weekday when you had members of the public out there. So during my time on the commission, we have one vendor where the owner surprise did turn into litigation, and the county spent $410,000 in litigation. But at the same time, we awarded $596,000 in work to that same vendor. It seems kind of counterintuitive that we would be legally taking them to court in a lawsuit, spending $410,000 in attorneys and professional services, excluding staff time, which was enormous, but then still awarding them $596,000 in new work. And again, the lawsuit keeps us from mentioning the particular vendor. These two additional scoring items, which after a discussion with the Public Works Director, Rich Spurka, we do on some of our other contracts, but not on CCNA, and you have to let me know if Rich is that the correct way to describe that we do on non-CCNA contracts. We do look at some of these matters, the litigation, past litigation, and just because somebody's had litigation in the past doesn't preclude them from submitting a bid or from not being awarded. There could be a very valid reason why they got brought into a lawsuit. But I think to protect the taxpayer's dollar, we need to know, are we awarding jobs to companies that have maybe not as good of a track record as another, and by allowing these two scoring items will kind of even the table on the folks that respond to our CCNAs in the future. So my request would be, is to allow adding, through purchasing, to allow these 2 additional categories to be added that will provide more transparency and more reassurance to the taxpayers that their tax dollars are being used wisely.
Okay, commissioners, questions, comments? Yes, Commissioner Solari.
Got one for Mr. Spierka.
Welcome, Mr. Spierka.
Good morning. Based on this, do you believe that adding the scoring categories would actually improve the product that is finally delivered to the taxpayers? Or would it make it more burdensome?
I'm not sure adding it as a point source, as a source of points to the contractors and the designers is the way to go. It's information that should be considered, but I do not believe we need to add points to it when we're making our consideration. That's more in the line of each individual looking at this on the selection committee and CCNA and weighing all the facts that they have before them. We do this a lot as far as, put committees together, and I believe that making points is arbitrary. I think it's just a consideration when we're looking at the overall production or the overall performance of the contractor or the design engineer.
Let me just see if I understood you correctly. So this type of information is presently considered.
We do, on the construction side, when we put stuff out, when we receive bids, staff we look into all of them. We check references, we look into this, but it's not actually submitted. I think it's a good idea to add it into our bid documents, to require them to provide us this information so we don't need to go searching for it. We can find it, but it makes the process much smoother if they provide it, if they're in litigation. I will just say, Brevard County, this is what we've done because they learned early on that they needed to look at this, and it's just another precaution. It is a precaution to help ensure that we have all the information to make the proper decision on the bidding, on whatever project we're working on.
So then just add the 2 categories as something that you consider, but put that as a formal part of the process.
Add it into the bid documents, yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Or into the CCNA request for information documents. The purchasing division manager and I have been discussing where to put these in the documents, and it's very simple. We can add a couple of sentences.
So the CNNA documents and the bid documents?
Bid documents, yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner O'Brien?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The only concern I would have with this is the owner surprise kind of thing. I look at a lot of the innovative projects that we've undertaken lately, like the Main Canal Skimmer Project and the Egret and Osprey algal scrubber marshes and Moorhen Marsh and other nutrient removal technologies. And I think anytime you look at some type of new innovative technology, that there might be some glitches that come up down the road where it doesn't work quite perfectly. And if we start punishing everybody because of that, I think we're going to stifle any innovation because nobody's going to be willing to bring forward any type of new technology if there's going to be some clawback just because it doesn't work 100% the way we thought it would. And so I'm a little hesitant on anything like that. I think what Rich just mentioned about adding some extra wording as far as any litigation to make it easier to research that, but also I think, anybody can sue anybody over anything, and so just because you've had litigation doesn't necessarily mean that you were in the wrong. It just means somebody felt that they wanted to sue somebody. So I think it's good to look at that, but again, I would agree with Rich that we don't need to make that a point factor in looking at the bids. So that's kind of where I am on this. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Along the same lines, I am a big concern that we begin to apply a scarlet letter to some of our bidders. In this litigious society, far more than it has been some 20 years ago, It appears that lawsuits spark up at just a moment's notice. It's easy to bring it to court than to mitigate and make things right. That unfortunately, that's the way of the land. And with that, I'm sure that many of the applicants do have lawsuits that are trailing them. Some of them are frivolous, some of them are warranted, but I don't think that we should take that into consideration. I think that staff has done an excellent job when they form a committee and select an approval process, that they do consider that is part of due diligence, and I'm sure it's well discussed. But as far as putting on a point system, I think that we might be entering into our own litigation as well. Counselor, that was my question. You have any legal concerns that could be an entrail from this process?
So as I understand it from the memo, there was a request that there be a disclosure of any pending litigation or any litigation within the past 10 years. When you do the CCNA process, it's a request for qualifications. It goes out, you get a bunch of responses back from architects, consultants, engineers, and the like. The board can choose at that time to select to have on call basically, 1, 2, 3, or 4 specific architects, engineers, or the like, and then as part of the just disclosure process, just having them put that down on paper, I don't see anything illegal or wrong with that. But I think the point is also important to note is that when you then use your CCNA contract, then you just have a bunch of work orders that go out to various vendors. And obviously, if something were to be found out about a vendor, even after they were hired under a CCNA contract, certainly we're not obligated to pick a particular vendor or to hire them for any particular projects. So it's something that staff could look at even after having hired someone under the CCNA process. I don't think having simply it being disclosed is a necessarily illegality issue. It's more of like a policy question as to whether that's the type of thing you want staff to be looking at heavily when hiring somebody under a CCNA, because of the different issues raised at the dais, such as anyone can sue anybody. It may be a litigation that's old, or maybe litigation that was certainly not valid or the like.
Thank you, Counselor. And County Administrator.
Yeah. Sorry. Yes, and I can just add on that, staff would be supportive of requesting the information. I wouldn't want to explicitly award points, say 10 points or whatever for owner surprises. I think we ask proposers for a lot of information whenever we do a CCNA or a bid, and this can just be added to that information. We ask it can give us information to help us make that decision that can be considered in ranking and making choices, but wouldn't recommend an explicit point award for owner surprises or lack of owner surprises. I think it's just additional information that could be considered as we're evaluating proposers as we go through the process, checking references and things like that. So that would be my recommendation.
All right, yes.
Madam Chair, just for Rich again, so we already do consider that when you're in committee? You already consider the background, the
Always.
Sunbid's assessment, all lawsuits?
We look into, when we get proposals in, we check references, we look at all the information. We do searches, staff spends time looking into. We try to do the best we can for the taxpayers in the county. So we look at all of this. This will just make our life a little easier by having the information submitted. That's all it's going to be used for. It's something we do now.
So my understanding, Commissioner Zork, is you're asking the litigation aspect to be made a part of the request for bid document. So instead of staff having to go out and search for it and maybe not finding it, it's already submitted to us as part of the process.
Right, and primarily looking at the CCNA side, which is, when we're going out straight up for bid, that's a little different procurement process versus the CCNA.
I have no problem with it. I would have assumed, honestly, like Rich said, that they're already kind of doing it, but I think having it as part of the process takes the onus off staff having to find that information. Also, from my perspective, we've seen a lot of new companies bidding or becoming part of our process that we might not be as familiar with. So it gives us a good position to really vet those with all the information at hand. So, from that perspective, having as much information as possible moving forward, especially with some of these larger projects, is a good thing. I do kind of echo Commissioner O'Brien's comments about we do have a tendency to do some more innovative projects, especially within our environmental realms. I don't think this would necessarily impact it, provided it's not being used as a point of points, just a point of vetting the entire picture of the company, so.
Right. And just one other item for clarification, maybe Dylan can confirm this. On construction litigation, you don't just wake up one day and say, gee, I think I'm going to sue the contractor XYZ. The contracts that we enter into, along with some of the state requirements, they force you to mediation, they force you into repair and resolve the issue. You have to go through years of steps as we did here. I think it was probably 4 years of, is there some other way to do this without suing them in court? It was quite a lengthy process before the lawsuit part actually happened. So that's, you can't just overnight say you're going to sue somebody on this type of work, but maybe Dylan can give a better answer.
I'm just going to be very honest. I do not want to talk about the litigation issue anymore. I will just say that under the CCNA statute, we are allowed to take into consideration the ability of professional personnel and their past performances. Certainly disclosure like this, I think, falls within those two categories, and I think that covers the issue with regards to CCNA.
Okay.
All right, so again, just as a summary, I think it's always good to have as much information as possible, and to the extent that that is what we're trying to do here, I don't think I'm hearing anybody have a major problem with that. So what is the pleasure of the board on this issue? Or Commissioner Zork, are you looking for a motion somewhere?
I guess the motion would be to instruct county staff to add to the list of requested documents to include prior litigation within the last 10 years and owner surprises if apparent. Or I'm open to have Rich add any better language to that so that I'm not crafting it the wrong way.
Okay.
I wouldn't put in the owner surprises, Commissioner.
Okay.
I think just requesting that staff, that they provide us with the past litigation over the last 10 years is sufficient information.
Okay, so
That'll give us a starting point. I think that's as simple as we can keep it.
Okay. So the motion would be is to add to the bid documents in CCNA that the applicants disclose any litigation within the past 10 years.
Okay. So motion by Commissioner Zork. I'll be happy to second that. Any further discussion?
Again, Madam Chair, you're not suggesting at all that there would be any points evaluated. This is for committee evaluation.
Overall, big
Overall.
picture, yeah.
Correct. All right. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, is there anything else for the good of the order? Just want to remind everybody that today is Election Day, so if you have not voted, please go and do so, exercise your rights. And with that, we stand adjourned.